funding is a very important element in my experience. It was the facilitator for my initial the start of the relationship with HomeLink. So so it enables the collaboration to happen, and kind of shows the value that the researcher can bring to the business in financial terms. Funding opportunity is kind of the catalyst for the collaboration. So if that funding isn't available, it makes it a lot harder for those projects to work. But it isn't the only thing that makes these things work. One really important part of the work I've done with them so far is what I'm kind of terming a lack of rigidity in the structure of the opportunity. So what I mean by that is, don't make it too academic, don't make it too commercial. There needs to be a crossover, and there needs to be shared benefits. So it needs to be useful for the academic, for the researcher, but also for the business. So there needs to be an alignment of the output, and it needs to be consistent to be valuable for both parties. Match the opportunities and the skills of the researcher and the business. Avoid the rigidity in the structure of the opportunity to keep it, along the line so it's valuable for both parties. And then keep your mind open for those opportunities for further collaboration.
When I think about sharing my findings or collaborating with organisations, typically, given my topic, which is domestic violence and abuse, I might think of a charity first and foremost. So I had to really think about this collaboration and how it could work. And, once I got talking to some of my contacts, and Wendy said, well, I'm an HR consultant, I'm a business, I want to develop this work with vet practitioners. So it made sense. We developed the collaboration from there. So just to explain a little bit more about what we're doing. So Wendy and I are working together. She's an expert in terms of working with vet practices. She's been doing it for many, many years. She knows how they operate. She's a veterinary nurse. She trains as a veterinary nurse. And my expertise lies in the field of domestic violence and abuse. So we're both learning from each other. And we're creating website content, practice guides, a short film, training materials. And this is all based on the existing resources that Wendy's got, and adding to that with the findings from my research. So why it works so well is that alignment of principles. It has to be that right ethical and moral fit for my research, which is it from the feminist perspective. Dealing with the topic of domestic violence and abuse, it's really important in my collaboration with Wendy that we're on the same page with that, because I'm very passionate about how the findings are presented, and I've got a duty to the two victim survivors that have participated in the research. So yeah, absolutely, that alignment with ethics is very important.
So clarity, I guess, is about managing expectations. And I think as Sam and Mary already mentioned, that it helps to have people within organizations that understand what academia is about, especially as Sam mentioned, the example of having somebody with a PhD within the organization so they can understand the academic process. This has also been the case with South East London Community Energy. The contact person there, she has a PhD in neurolinguistics. And it helps somebody with such an academic background to be able to understand what academics can provide, but also with a clear understanding of what the limitations are, because there's often, or there can be, a certain expectation that there's some kind of academic wizardry, that we can come in and we can do something with our magic wand and then something will happen. I think it's quite important to make sure that there are certain things that we can be quite good at. For example, if there's a reasonably good data set, we might be able to crunch some numbers, but we can't just pull something out of a hat. So I think it's really important to make sure that this is understood by all sides. We all have a clear understanding of where we stand, what we can provide, and also a realistic understanding in terms of what can be done within a 3-month period, given that we're all working on this about, on average, 1 day a week. They're quite keen on outputs to be directed at a fairly high level. So they're not just they don't just have an interest in our output being relevant to the company, they also want our output to be policy relevant. We're in the process of reimagining universities as civic universities. So to a certain extent, some academics will be engaging more and more with the public sector. And there's this understanding that comes, I think, out of kind of smart cities language that we're seeing from the US, this idea of triple and quadruple helixes. This implies that instead of public-private partnerships, we're increasingly seeing universities also playing a role through research and development originally, but increasingly also through the social sciences. And we see a lot more of that now if we add community organizations as well in quadruple helix constellations. I believe we see a lot more of that moving forward. And University of Bristol, for example, is engaged with a lot of research within the city, which involves all these different strands. And I think the university will need to be much clearer in terms of what it can provide, but also in terms of its limitations, in terms of what researchers can do, but also make it very clear in terms of what cannot be done. Because sometimes for businesses, it's the day-to-day that just tends to blind them regarding the kind of long-term trends that an academic perspective might be able to provide.